A mother and her son plan a surprise visit to Los Angeles to see her husband. On their way, they are involved in a horrific accident halfway through their journey and must now fight for survival. The story begins with an advertisement for a highly advanced car known as the safest car in the world. Thanks to its modern technologies and innovative safety systems, the car features durable wheels, shatterproof glass, and a robust body, among other features that ensure passenger safety from theft or other threats. The car is also equipped with an application connected to an artificial intelligence system that controls all its features when the driver is inside. The intelligent assistant, named Leith, helps manage the car. We then see the mother, Nancy, with her 2-year-old son, David, inside the car on their way to her mother-in-law's house. Nancy is talking to the intelligent assistant, through which we learn the names of her son, David, and her husband, Carl, who speaks to her over the phone but is unable to join them because he is busy. The car is so advanced that it can even determine the weight of passengers. During their trip, David starts crying, so Nancy decides to give him her phone to play with. After some time, Nancy stops at a station to take David to the restroom. There are a few girls laughing at the station, while Nancy shops for some items for herself and her son. While paying at the cashier, she notices someone trying to break into her car. She doesn't panic. Instead, she uses her phone to lock the car remotely and monitors the situation from a distance. After finishing her shopping, Nancy realizes that David is not beside her, causing her to panic, thinking he is lost. However, she eventually finds him with the laughing girls. Nancy then returns to the car and activates the Do Not Disturb mode, isolating her from anything happening outside the car, and continues on her way. The remaining distance to her mother-in-law's house is long, and due to the long journey, Nancy feels bored and calls her friend to check on her. Her friend shocks her by revealing that she had just been with Carl, Nancy's husband, at a hotel a while ago. This revelation leaves Nancy deeply shocked. When Nancy finally arrives at her mother-in-law's house, she decides not to go inside and instead calls her husband, who ignores her calls. She then decides to head to the hotel where her husband is. While driving, she notices a road sign indicating that the remaining distance to the city with the hotel is about 320 miles. At this moment, the intelligent assistant, Leith, informs her of an accident on the road that would delay her arrival and suggests taking a detour. However, Leith warns her that the alternate route is deserted with no services available. Despite the warning, Nancy insists on taking the detour. As night falls and fog sets in, she begins to struggle with driving due to poor visibility. She tries to find a rest stop or building for a break, but only comes across an abandoned power station. She considers stopping there, but realizing it is deserted, decides to continue driving. While driving, distracted and unfocused, she hits a deer crossing the road. As a result, David started crying again, so Nancy gave him her phone to calm him down. She then got out of the car to check on the deer and found it dead, hanging from the front of the car, preventing her from moving the vehicle. At that moment, Nancy forgot her son inside the car with the phone. Accidentally, David activated the car's app and enabled the passenger protection feature, which completely locked all doors and windows. Nancy realized what had happened and rushed to the doors and windows, but she couldn't open them unless David did so himself. However, the little boy didn't understand what his mother wanted and kept playing with the phone until he dropped it under the seat. Nancy felt despair and panic. She tried breaking the glass with a rock, but it didn't even scratch. She then realized that the car's features weren't just advertising promises, they were terrifyingly real. Realizing the glass wouldn't break, she decided to look for other options. Nancy returned to the power station and climbed over the fence in search of help but found no one. She entered one of the rooms and found a phone, but it was broken. She also discovered some tools, including a flashlight and a large wrench, which might help her break the glass. As she was leaving to return to the car, she felt an animal following her. She ran toward the car, and at that moment, a dog attacked her. She climbed on top of the car and tried to scare the animal away, but it wasn't intimidated and continued trying to attack her. When she struck the car with the wrench, the dog got scared and backed off. Nancy then noticed that her son was starting to have difficulty breathing. She tried to calm him down, and after some time, he managed to breathe normally and fell asleep. After thinking for a while, Nancy too fell asleep from exhaustion. The next morning, she woke up and checked on her son, finding him hungry and thirsty as he hadn't eaten for a long time. One of the car's features was displaying the external temperature, which was rising. Nancy looked around her surroundings but found no signs of human life. She decided to search for help. Despite knowing the risks of leaving her son alone, she had no other choice. Fortunately, she came across a river where she drank water and rested. She then continued her journey despite the difficulty of walking in the heat until she reached an old airport. There she found an abandoned plane and noticed the temperature continued to rise, activating the car's automatic cooling system. Nancy entered the plane but found only a jerry can of gasoline, a lighter, and spare wheels for the aircraft. She burned the wheels to create smoke in hopes of attracting someone's attention. Then she filled the jerry can with water from the river and returned to the car. When she reached the car, she found David weak and turning red. She tried to get his attention, but he didn't respond. The temperature inside the car car, which was sealed tightly, continued to rise, and even the cooling fans couldn't handle the heat. At that moment, Nancy climbed on top of the car and poured the water she had brought onto it, but it didn't help. She began to fear that her son might die inside the car. Desperately, she used the wrench to try to break the glass or the car's body, but became too exhausted to cause any damage. After some time, Nancy tried lighting a fire outside the car, hoping that the sensors would detect the smoke and open the windows. However, nothing happened. The cooling fans stopped working to prevent smoke from entering the car. Nancy felt exhausted and collapsed to the ground, imagining herself and Carl visiting the site of their son's death a year later. In this vision, she blamed Carl for what had happened. She snapped back to reality when the dog appeared again and decided to hide by climbing onto the car. However, the car's surface was too hot to stay on due to the high temperature, so she hid under the car instead. At that moment, the dog bit her leg, and Nancy realized the dog kept coming back because of the dead deer. When the dog dragged the deer away from the car began to roll backward due to the slope. Nancy tried her best to stop it, but it continued to move and was on the verge of falling off a cliff. Luckily, a small rock stopped it. Nancy then remembered a scene from a cartoon she had watched at the gas station, where a box fell from a mountain and spilled diamonds. This gave her an idea: to push the car off the cliff so the impact would unlock the doors. She knew her plan might harm her son, but she had no other choice. Grabbing the wrench, she broke the rock holding the car in place. As soon as the rock broke, Nancy began pushing the car toward the edge, with her son still inside. The car fell off the cliff, but the AI system detected the steep drop and activated the vehicle's balancing feature, ensuring it landed on its wheels to protect the passengers inside. The Do Not Disturb mode was disabled after the fall, allowing passengers to call for help. As soon as the car hit the ground, the doors unlocked. Nancy rushed down the mountain toward the car. Despite the car falling from a significant height, it was undamaged and only needed a wash. She opened the door, took her son out, and removed his clothes to cool him down. Seeing that David was still weak, Nancy decided to leave the area as quickly as possible. She got into the car, started the engine, which worked perfectly, and activated the four-wheel drive mode to climb the slope. The car, built for extreme conditions, ascended the hill with ease. Nancy continued driving until she reached the nearest hospital. She was anxious about her son, but then David opened his eyes and called out to her. Nancy felt a wave of relief and joy that her son had recovered. She was overjoyed that she managed to save her son, who almost died because of a cigarette. Finally, she could rest. Are you ready for the next film? Subscribe to the channel to get notified as soon as it's released. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.